Madsen, 1931. This is my first case that I'm going to explore with you. So he practiced a scientific method. He actually watched, here he has two cases, newborn 1, newborn 2, which I'm going to go into in a minute, that he actually observed what happened after he vaccinated them, wrote down their reactions instead of sending them home and not doing so. So what did he give them? He gave them pertussis bacteria and formaldehyde because they had discovered that that was a way to kill bacteria. So it had 100 million bacteria that had been killed by formaldehyde, and they're very small. And it's the way that they abbreviate formaldehyde to form, and it cross-links proteins, which makes it perfect for keeping bodies from breaking down if they're kept cold. So these are representing 3 proteins next to each other, like you have on a cell wall, and they have channels and multiple things going on, and when the formaldehyde cross-links them, they no longer function, and it kills these cells rapidly. In a body that's cold and dead, it will cross-link and preserve it, which is why they discovered it was something you could sit out on the counter and it would preserve tissue. The thing they did not realize that it was not stable. It has the cross-linking itself happens within minutes. Today you'll see in the recipes they will let it sit for 2 to 24 hours over the weekends at a heated temperature of 37 degrees C. What is 37 degrees C? It's 98.6 Fahrenheit, which is body temperature, which relative to us is not heating, that's body temperature. The half-life of formaldehyde is 10 to 20 hours. And that's when the cross-links dissolve and these molecules of proteins, they're going to be pushed apart. And now you have freed proteins, and you have what they called unreacted formaldehyde floating around now. And this is called formaldehyde reversal. And form reversal, the NIH, the National Institute of Health, says that it reverses at a rate, quote unquote, that increases exponentially with temperature, which is what this graph is showing. I have 12-hour increments of time going this way, 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4, and here 12 degrees centigrade. Increasing here on this side of the graph, showing room temperature and body temperature. So what do they have to do? They have to freeze these. That's what they do today. They've killed the bacteria, and then it has to be frozen at I see below 2 degrees C all the time. 2 to 4 degrees C seems to be the magic. We're starting to thaw it out number, because it has to be thawed out from the freezer before you can actually give it to somebody. Not only does it have to be thawed out, it has to be given to them at room temperature, which is 72 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 22 degrees centigrade. Right there. Which at room temperature, it's now broken down in 3.5 days. Today, we have, since the 40s, we've had Freon and freezers, and WHO, the World Health Organization, calls for weekly tests. Once you have taken the killed by formaldehyde inactivated organism, of which most of the dead inactivated microbe vaccines are, once you take them out of the freezer into the refrigerator to start to thaw out, and they can sit there for weeks, months, depending on the manufacturer's notes on the product. Toxin is being freed once it is taken out of the freezer. Thus, you have to have weekly tests of how much toxin has been freed. That is what they test for. So, what's up with Madsen in 1931, back during the Depression when they had ice? He gave 2 newborn babies this recipe. And he gave them 2 doses that were the same, a second dose that in which they reacted the same way and died the same way. So newborn 1 was born at term approximately 7 pounds. The lethal dose of formaldehyde for this child would be 0.5 cc's or milliliters, and he gave them 0.1 cc. That's 20% of the lethal dose for this child. 4 days later, he came back and he gave them this child a 50% increase, 0.15 cc's, and that's a 30% lethal dose of this product. Now you have the cumulative effect of the 20% and the 30% within a few days. You have the body temperature reversal in 2 days, and you have the reversal out at room temperature, which is most the way they practiced it. So once he made this batch and he left it out, came back a few days later, either way there was enough reversal and accumulation to cause nociception for this child within 30 minutes. And nociception is what happens from unreacted formaldehyde. The child had arm and leg contractions, cyanosis in which they turn blue because they can't breathe, cyan, and then convulsions, and died. Second one is a preemie, 5 weeks early, 8 days old. It weighs 5 pounds. The LD, lethal dose of formaldehyde for this child, is 0.3 cc's approximately. So the 0.1 cc dose for this child is higher in terms of the LD, being now 30% of the lethal dose for this child. 3 days later he comes back, he's now given it a 100% increase, he's doubled the dose, and that's when everything goes wrong. He's now giving this child the 50% lethal dose. You've got an 80% going on just with those figures. In terms of, and then understanding reversal and the nuances of what's happening. This child, he sat and watched what happened, and within 2 hours, same thing. Slight cyanosis, turned blue, died suddenly. Did not have the contractions and the convulsions. But I give him credit because he practiced the scientific method. He observed what was going on with his the recipients of this recipe, and instead of sending them home and telling the mother that she was crazy what she saw or what he gave them had nothing to do with it, he could actually watch what was happening and give us information so we can understand better what's happening to our children. Thank you.